Welcome to Moldex3D's Intelligent Simulation Lifecycle Management, which is a solution that can help to manage all of your different projects and archive the solutions that you've discovered through projects in the past. To start out with iSLM, you'll have to start your server. To start your server, you'll go down into your Start menu, and you can find the iSLM Start DB and Moldex3D iSLM Start Server. You'll want to start both of these in order to have the Moldex3D iSLM function available through the internet. To access the Moldex3D iSLM platform through the internet, you'll type into the web browser your IP address /# /login, and that will bring you to Moldex3D's iSLM login. Every iSLM product comes with an administrator account, so you can enter your administrator account, and then the password is Moldex3D at iSLM. Let's log in. The administrator account for iSLM controls what all of the different roles and groups can see as far as the iSLM platform is concerned. The administrator account has access to all of the information in iSLM and can allow or deny privileges for other accounts. To adjust these privileges and to start setting up Moldex3D iSLM for other accounts, you'll go down to Content Management. The first thing you'll do in Content Management is create all of the different accounts. The administrator account will automatically show up, and you can simply click Create Account to create the account that would show up in the list. You can also set passwords for these particular accounts so that every user has their own account set up. For every account, you'll need to assign a group and a role. Groups and roles can be set up separately using the role and group sections right underneath the account. If we close out of the Create Account section, we can go down to Role, and we should see that the default admin role should be created. From here, we can create new roles. The role in Moldex3D iSLM allows us to tell what type of engineer or what part of the life cycle you are a part of, whether that be sales, whether that be design, whether that be production. All of those roles can be created by the admin and assigned under the accounts that are created. So for example, let's say I have engineering, status active, and then it allows us to assign that to a particular profile. These profiles allow us to select what that role can see. So for example, in engineering, we might be able to see mold tryout information. We might be able to see the task management, solution management, and knowledge management. We'll describe these later on. Down below, we're able to see all of the different information that each of these sections provide. For example, knowledge management, solution management, and all of the subcategories under those. All of this role data will be stored under what we call a profile. Now, the profile is different from the account. The account is going to be more on the individual level, whereas the profile is going to be set up for multiple users across a role. So for example, if my role is engineering, maybe the name of my profile is also engineering as well. And again, we can select all of this information down here and give permissions or deny information to particular roles. When we click Create, we'll see that we have a new role for engineering. We can edit or delete this at any time. In addition to this, we go under Profile, and we see that a new engineering profile has shown up, and it says that it's been created by the role of engineering. Profiles will be created in various regions of the iSLM for the administrator, and this is just one of them. The group allows us to assign what business unit the particular accounts are under. So when I go to create a group, you'll see that it will ask me for the name of the group, which maybe I'll put North America. Or if you have a business unit or or maybe if you don't have any other units and you just want to create kind of a generic unit, you can you can just call this group. Now you can actually create a nesting of groups. So for example, if I have sales, I can create the group of sales, and under that group of sales, I can create a bunch of subgroups. That would be North America, Asia, Europe, China, and anything else you'd like to show. So I'll create this group, we'll call it active, and we'll say that it is the parent group. You can also enter a description here if you wish. We'll go ahead and click create, and we see now that we have two different groups. We have admin and North America. All right, now that we have our profiles, we have our roles, our groups, now we can actually go in and create accounts successfully. So going into create an account, we're going to select the group that we created. We're going to select the role that we created, and we'll set the status as active. Now, the number of accounts that you can have active at the same time is linked to the number of iSLM licenses that you have available. Now that we've created all of our accounts, now we can start going in to define the information that we want to see in this iSLM platform. After you create an account, now we can move on to data define. Data define is going to define the information that we're going to give whenever we create a log into the iSLM system. The first bit of data define is called a classification. A classification, if we go to create classification, is going to be the industry, the type of product that we're going to use, and even as specific as the part that we're going to be defining. We can add as many industries, products, and parts as we want here, and this will give us the ability to track the information across these fields as we create data entries. So the first thing here, add industry, let's just say general. Press enter and it moves it over to the left side. For product, let's say cleaning. And then for part, let's say vacuum housing. All right, and then the status will almost always be active unless this product is no longer in production, or if this product is not yet in production, you can set the status to deactive if you want to, but most of the time the status will just be set to active. So we'll go ahead and click create, and it creates that classification, which includes the industry, the product, and the part. Now the number of industry, products, and parts will impact the amount of information that you can provide up in the solution management sections. So you'll want to set up these ahead of time in order to be able to classify that information. Next is the DFM title. DFM stands for Design for Manufacturing. So this is just going to be a title for the DFM that you'll be providing up in the solution management, knowledge management section. So this will just be the name. Let's just say DFM for short, but you can create as many DFM titles as you want, and you can edit or delete these at any time as well. Moving on to machine, this is going to be more of a database for the machines that you use. So if you have all of the information from all the machines, this will give you the ability to classify what machine is being used for a particular iSLM data input. So to create a machine, we're going to go to machine upload. We can create the serial number. In this case, I'm going to choose an Arberg machine. Use a 1200T. And you can put the whole serial number here. I'm just going to keep it nice and short. The second data field is going to be to choose the machine file. The machine file is actually going to come from Moldex3D. And to find it, we're going to open up Moldex3D. And you can open up any project once Moldex3D opens up here. All right, and once the project opens up, we can go to Home, Process. We're not going to be editing the process because obviously we don't want to clear any of the results of our simulation. We're just using this as a means to export the machine information. So we're going to go to CAE mode. We're going to change to machine mode if it isn't already. When it asks us to scale, we can click no. And when it asks us to add to the database, we can also click no, and it'll bring us into the machine database where all of the machines that we currently have available are going to be located. So I can find a machine. I'm just going to choose the first one under Arberg here. Right click, add to user bank. And once the machine is added to your user bank, you can right click export, and that's going to export the MCHS file that we're going to be importing into the iSLM system. So we'll just call this Arberg 1200T. All right, and you can do that for as many machines as you want to while you're in here. So if you know what machines you have on your floor, or if you know what machines you'll be using, you can import those. Once you're finished, you can press OK. You can exit out of the little dialog that comes up here. And to avoid clearing any information from your results, you can click Cancel. We don't need to edit the process from what the simulation was run with. Again, it's just a means to retrieve the MCHS file. So going back to iSLM, we're going to choose the MCHS file. And then we'll choose the image of the machine itself. So you can go out and take a picture of the machine if you want to, just so all of the engineers and all the sales guys know what machine we're dealing with. If there's a particular number on the machine, that might be useful. You can also throw that up in the serial number if you wish, and then you can click Create. Once the machine has been created, the MCHS file will automatically identify the injection unit, the clamping unit, and the machine response. If there's any issues with the file, which in this case it looks like there might have been, then there will be red X's. So just keep in mind that if the information isn't available in the MCHS file, then they might not show up here. Sometimes those files are a little bit more generic. Sometimes they just have some general information in them. It's not necessary that they have all of the information in them, as we can see here. And you can add as many machines as you want to. Like I mentioned, you can even create multiple of the same machine, just with different serial numbers or with different press numbers if you wish, just to kind of create a consistent database of the machines that you have available to you. Moving on to the right here, we have the material files. So this will be any material that you have in your system. And you can click Material Upload. You'll find the material file. And then you can also create an image if you have like a spec sheet, or if there's a label on the material itself, you can upload that as well. And you can click Create just like with the machine. And you can repeat that process for as many materials as you want to, just like with the machine as well. Moving on to defect, this will allow us to create the names for different defects that we could interface with. So we'll go up and click Create Defect. And this is just going to be a name. So this will be something like warp, create, sync, create, and so on. So you can create as many of those as you want to, and then these bits of information are what you can load into the solution management once we go to create a data input. All right, inspection allows us to tell the system what types of comparison information we're going to be importing. So things like a 3D scan, which is going to be created automatically for us, as that's one of the most common comparative solutions. You can also import things like your tolerance sheet. You can import defect images. Those types of things can be added here if you so desire. And you can just create the inspection. It'll be pretty much the same. There'll also be a value here as well. So if there's a particular unit that will be used for the inspection, for example, like millimeters or a volumetric shrinkage percentage, something like that, you can kind of create the unit to give a little bit more consistency across the board with your iSLM inputs. Moving on to parent task items, these are more of just kind of overarching concepts. So if there's tasks that need to be completed for a particular job, things like a DFM report, the simulation itself, or a mold tryout, these types of parent task items can be created here. You can also create more trivial tasks like creating the report from the simulation, or even something as simple as buying material, for example. All right, archives allows you to save information that will be kind of saved in the background. So you can create categories for that. Mold information will allow you to tell what type of mold is being implemented for a particular iSLM input, and also allows you to create multiple fields that would be associated with that kind of mold structure. So if you have a particular mold structure, maybe like a vertical mold versus a horizontal mold, then you can input both of those, and maybe those both have different fields associated with them. Finally, evaluation gives you the simulation output categories. So by default, we have filling, packing, warpage, and cooling. You might be able to add something like stress if you were to run that, optics, other types of simulations that you might run. All right, moving on to the next section, template setting. Template setting is split into two categories. You can either create an on-site mold trial report or a mold tryout comparison report. And these, again, kind of like the data define, are just setting up the information that you would set in the mold tryout management section. All right, so if I create a template for the on-site mold tryout, it'll give me, so the display name might be mold tryout. Output name can be whatever you want it to be. I'll just call it demo. This will change pretty widely based on what information is being input. Margin is more of just a setting for the file itself. So text replacement down here just allows us to define the terminology that we're going to be using. So for instance, some companies won't use velocity. They'll use something like linear speed or something like that. So you can change the terminology here. Then down here towards the bottom, you'll choose what the file type is going to be for this mold tryout. So if there's a Word document that's used, then you can do that. Some companies will use a JSON file. Not very common, but if you have that sort of capability, then, or if you have that sort of template, then you can input that here as well. But most of the time, it'll just be the doc file. All right, the mold trial comparison report actually works quite similarly, except in this case, it is a PowerPoint file instead. So, if you have the template as a PowerPoint instead of a Word format, then you would want to use a comparison report rather than the on-site mold trial. All right, down here in setting just has some generic settings that you can use to adjust what is seen. And then usage statistics allows you to see who is currently using the iSLM system, just from an administrator perspective. Now that we have all of the content management set up, now we can actually start making data entries. The first thing you're going to do is create a solution. So we're going to go to Solution Management, and then we're going to go to Create Solution. So we'll input the case number, which is just your job number or case ID or something like that. Solution name is just going to be kind of a generic name that you want to give this. Let's just follow the vacuum housing route. All right, product name can also be vacuum housing. It can be whatever you want it to be. These are more of just ways for you to identify which solution this is. Ultimately, the solution is going to be all of the inputs that you're getting. So things like your simulation files, your reports, your DFMs, all of these sorts of things are going to be located under this case number. So just keep that in mind. Customer is not a required field, but you can place that in if you want to. All right, classification. And this is actually what we set up down in the content management. So we have general, and then I can select my cleaning and vacuum housing. So these were all set up under the content management and will have to be set up ahead of time. All right, description, not a required field, but you can put a small description of this job if you wish. Mold manufacturing date, you can place that in there as well. Keyword is more of a way for you to locate this project if you want to search for it. Owner can be whoever is creating this. So in this case, administrator, but if an engineer is creating this or whoever is creating this can be selected under the owner. And then also it says share to group member. So when this data entry is created, this will be shared to any group member that is nested under the owner of this particular entry. So for example, if we have the engineering manager creating this input, then all other engineers in their group will be able to see this data entry. All right, we can select the security level, whether it's public, restricted, or confidential. And then the status will almost always be active. There's not really a reason to deactivate it unless it is being archived. All right, so we can click create. And now we have created the solution for vacuum housing. From here, we can create evaluations. We can create archives. So this is where we would upload, for example, the step file. You can upload your PowerPoint report. You can upload the raw information, things like your process sheet or any materials that you've been using, and a bunch of others that you can import here as well. The DFM report can be imported here. So you can create a new DFM name with the 2D or 3D part number. All right, the mold information can be edited here. So this mold information would have been set up over in the content management. So if we have a vertical mold versus a horizontal mold, again, as an example, then both of those will show up here and they'll be editable for your convenience. Moldex3D, this is where we're going to import the Moldex3D project. So this is going to look for a zip file, very, very important. So when you're going to upload a project into iSLM, you'll need to first compress that project. Now that doesn't mean just take the simulation file, which is the MRM file. You'll want to make sure to go up to the main folder and then right click add to consumer.rar, or you can do it through a WinZip or a 7-zip, however you want to do it. You want to make sure to compress this entire project folder, and that's what you're going to be importing into this function here. Now, please note that it says zip file only. What this doesn't mean that it only accepts zip files. It does accept RAR files and 7Z files as well. All right, and then you can throw in a description if you wish. All right, mold tryout is more of just going to be a place for all of the mold tryout information to be placed. We are going to be creating mold tryout information, and down in the content management, when we looked at the template setting, these mold tryout report templates would have been created already. So that's why nothing shows up here, because I actually did not create a mold tryout template. All right, and then member will be all of the members of this particular solution. So you can add members, you can remove members if you wish. So you have all that capability available to you. All right, finally, going back to the first tab, information. So this actually allows you to create a quality dashboard and evaluate this simulation based on a 5-star rating. So if it's good for fill but not so good for warpage, these are the fields that we actually set up down in the data define over in evaluation. So if you want more fields to show up there, if you want more criteria to show up there, then you can add more evaluation fields. All right, and that's it as far as the solution is concerned. When you actually import the project, it'll actually find a picture file and place that here as well. So don't be too alarmed by this little exclamation mark. It just means that the project hasn't been uploaded yet. So just keep that in mind. But it'll kind of give all of the information here. You have your molding type, your polymer that's being used, customer, keyword, all that stuff can be input as we go along. Going down to mold trial management, we're going to find the solution that we just created, and then we can create the mold tryout report, which will allow us to find the project and the run that we've imported through the solution management to start creating a mold tryout, a virtual mold tryout. This just allows you to document all of the changes that were made and to give you access to an archive for future changes to similar parts in the future. All right, and then finally up here in knowledge management, this is more of just the database. So if I click on the drop down, I can go to general, I can go to parts, and then I can click search, and that'll just find all of the data entries that we have. And then I can actually go in and I can compare two different simulation set, and I can also look at the statistics across a particular field as well. So if I want to see all of the data entries across the general industry, then I can just do general search. All right, and then I can select the material, that I want to compare across as well. Right, and currently for me, CAE and mold tryouts are not existing, so I don't have any, but you'll see the number of entries under the general category and under the whatever subcategories you want to create here. Now the admin account gives access to the content management section. The majority of accounts under the iSLM system will not be able to edit the content management. Only the administrator will be able to edit the content management. All other users will be able to create data entries using the solution management primarily, and then they can do those sorts of comparisons through the knowledge management and input mold trial information through the mold tryout management. Thank you for learning more about Moldex3D's Intelligent Simulation Lifecycle Management, or iSLM, and go beyond simulation with Moldex3D.